What's up, grinders? So we're going to do another review, but before we do, I must ask, have you done your grinding yet? If you haven't done your grind or your language study for the day, what the hell are you doing here watching these pointless videos? Go do your study, then come back and enjoy my glorious face. So we're going to be looking at how to learn languages so naturally it feels like cheating. Now, after the last few videos and some of the distraughting occurrences that happened while watching those, as soon as I see cheating, I start thinking about, this is going to go in some weird sex direction. But I'm assuming it's not. We're going to watch this one in complete good faith.
What is the secret to polyglots? These people learn 4, 8, 16 languages like it's nothing.
No one learns 16 languages like it's nothing. People who know like an obscene amount of languages have like dedicated their entire existence to learning languages. I know, because I've met like people who actually speak a fair few languages, and these people literally live and breathe languages. It's not like someone walks down the road, randomly trips over a language, he goes, oh god damn it, I just learned Hebrew. Wasn't planning to do that today, oh well. It just doesn't happen.
Well, when I learned Japanese, I cracked the code, and it was actually easier than I thought.
Cracked the code, okay, well, I haven't cracked the code yet, so maybe we've got something to learn.
Because in the past, I tried everything to learn Spanish, and I still failed. But that was the problem. I wanted a shortcut. But the secret to polyglots is not some cheap trick. They simply know how to use their time for maximum results. So in this video, I'll reveal the 7-step formula I found that gave me the best results. This works so well that when I was living in Japan, I had Japanese people tell me, "Mo Nihonjin desu ne," which basically means, yeah, you're already Japanese.
Okay, you also got to remember Japanese culture, along with Chinese culture, they're very respectful to people learning their language, and they will, say, oh wow, you're doing so amazing and stuff, but it's realistically, you're probably not that great. You'll know you're really good at the language when people stop commenting on it and just accept you as one of them type of thing.
So I'm going to jump right into this, and it starts easier than I think you'd expect. Step 1 is simply watch media with captions in your native language. Yes, you heard that right. Captions in your native language. Because this phase is not about learning. It's about...
I'm assuming there's a lot more to this, but straight up, I'm going to say that doesn't help you at all. Because realistically, if that was to work, then when I was growing up watching SBS and The Monkey King, for those who don't know what SBS is, it's like an international channel in Australia where they play all sorts of like random international movies. I would have like spoke like Chinese by the time I left school because I watched so much Monkey King, it's not funny. And it's subtitled, it wasn't dubbed. So that doesn't work, okay? Watching just a movie with subtitles, it's not going to help you because you're going to focus on the subtitles and you're going to basically not focus on the sounds.
Enjoying yourself first. Because the biggest problem language learners face is simply finding content you enjoy.
That is definitely true. This is always a struggle for me with Chinese. It's like, it's so hard to find content at my level that I actually enjoy.
Because it's hard to enjoy something if you don't know what the heck is going on. So this step is to free yourself from feeling like you have to learn something from every piece of media you watch. Just enjoy. And the next...
Okay, so if this is done as like a complementary thing to like your study routine, then yeah, that's perfectly fine. Like if you do your normal study, your active study, then you do some actual immersion, and then you just want to sit back and just enjoy content in the language and read subtitles, and that's fine. But don't like take this as like a major part of your study routine.
Step will take it up a notch. So when you find something you enjoy, watch the same content with no captions. It's a small change, and we're not really studying just yet, but it makes a big difference, and I'll tell you why.
Okay, so now I'm starting to see where he's heading with this. Okay, it's starting to make more sense. So basically you start with the content that you find something you actually want to watch, and then you're going to go back, you're going to review it, and you're basically going to break it down.
When I was learning Japanese, I watched a lot of shows. I even watched them with Japanese captions, but I still found my listening skills suffered. Why is that? Well, for me, whenever there's some text flying across the screen, I just have to read it. Even if I don't understand it, I have to read it. So I might read the caption, "I want to eat a candy apple," but I wouldn't hear the actual Japanese words.
Here's another thing with like subtitles is, I don't know for Japanese, but for like Chinese, the subtitles literally, unless they're like a YouTube video, never match what's being bloody said. It's the most annoying thing in the world, especially with like Netflix and Disney and Amazon, all of these services. It's almost pointless because it just never matches. So the subtitle, like learning using the subtitles is not very efficient because half the time you only get like a slight overlay between what's actually in the subtitle and what's actually being said.
Even if the Japanese words were on the screen, I would still just try to read the captions, even if I didn't understand a thing. I was using the captions as a crutch. And that's a big mistake, because there's no captions in real life.
Okay, this is totally true. I made a video ages back where I was giving encouragement to a guy who was learning Chinese because he literally could not understand the language just due to the fact that he was always reading subtitles.
So this step forced me to sit and listen. And every now and then I'd hear words that I've been learning. That said, I'd still miss 99% of everything said because they were just talking way too fast. And I know I'm not the only one who's experienced this. So in the next step, we'll go even deeper and hone our listening skills. This practice is what made it easy for me to listen and understand Japanese speakers at their natural speed. So what is it? Listen and write what you hear with no captions. And
This would be pretty hard to do with like Chinese, unless you can already write the entire language, which in any case, you probably don't need to do this. Maybe you could write the pinyin, but then I feel like you're wasting a lot of time. Even for Japanese, which has 3 separate scripts, including kanji, like, I don't think this is a very good method overall. Like, you will definitely make progress if you actually do this, but this actually feels like it would be highly inefficient.
Easy 3 steps. Step number 1, play a small clip, enough for someone to speak 1 sentence. Step number 2, pause. Write down the sounds you hear. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can replay the same clip as many times as you need until you can write down all of the sounds. Step number 3, repeat. Keep going until you finish the entire video. Or you can set a stopwatch for a half an hour, whatever you want.
I've actually done stuff like this before, not for an entire movie, simply due to the fact that it just becomes so boring. Like, even if you love the content you're doing, it just becomes insanely boring. I went over The Expanse on Amazon on the first episode. I actually had this plan. I was going to try it out. And I remember I got 5 minutes into the movie. I had basically, written down all what was in the subtitles, created audio cards for them, all this type of stuff, put it into Anki, practiced it. But the next day when it came back, I was like, do I really want to do the next 5 minutes? That's just going to be so boring. And if in a month I'm going to do like 1 episode, like I'd rather just do something completely brand new today, try some totally new content. Otherwise I'm just going to be bored and I know exactly what to expect the next day and the next day after this.
Only after compare what you wrote with the real language. And I say only after because this is not about writing practice. And this is not about being correct. This is about honing your listening. So
I feel like this might work to a degree. I can't say whether it would or it wouldn't because I haven't done this specific action of, trying to basically guesstimate what you're hearing, because I feel like it's not really needed. If you want to hone your listening, just create audio cards and listen to those audio cards over and over. And you won't have to do this like guesstimation. Now, I guess there is like one possibility here where the fact that you're constantly trying to listen over and over, and I've done this part before, to try and figure out what's being said, because sometimes there is no subtitles, will help you like hone in on the specific sounds. But half the time the problem is not the sounds for me, it's the background noise, something that's just making something just a little bit too difficult to hear type of thing. So if you really want to hone in on your listening, I think a more effective method would just be to find out what's actually being said, listen to it, try to actually break it down as it's being said in your mind, and then try to visualize it as you're listening to it over and over and over.
Then comparing sentence by sentence, chunk it out. Focus on listening first, then compare. If there's only one practice you do in this entire video, do this. This will level up your listening dramatically, which will make language learning 10 times easier.
Okay, I know my method for like listening, where you just create audio cards and you listen to them in order to actually, create connections between the sounds and the meaning and the ideas behind the words actually works. I have not tried this enough in depth. I've only ever done this when there was like basically a video that I wanted to transcribe, but I didn't have subtitles for. And it was pretty much only whenever I just couldn't quite hear what was being said. So if someone has done this in depth, I'm very curious to hear what you've got to say in the comments.
Because listening is the most important skill for language learners, but it's also the most neglected. So don't skip it. That said, you shouldn't only focus on listening. There are a total of 4 core skills to learn a language: listening, reading, writing, and speaking.
That's very good that he said that, because funnily enough, most polyglots will actually just focus in on like primarily listening, and they'll say everything else it will eventually come, somewhere down the track. Or some of them will actually focus on, primarily writing with listening, but pretty much everyone these days seems to like not talk about speaking.
If you want to master a language, you have to practice all 4 skills. And this next practice, we do just that. And yes, we use the same piece of content again. At this point, you might be getting tired of the video. I get it. But think about when you were a kid and you found a movie you liked. You'd watch it over and over and over and over. You'd repeat lines and drive your parents crazy.
I know what he's talking about. I did this as a kid, obviously, with certain movies. I've spoke about them on this channel before. I did this with Bowfinger, with Starship Troopers. I love these movies. However, I have not found anything in Chinese for me as an adult that makes me want to have that desire to watch it over and over and over and over and over and over again. Like it hasn't been found as of yet. And when I think about it in English now, apart from movies from when I was a kid, there's no movie, like modern movie or TV show, where I just want to watch it over and over again. Because I feel like as a kid, you just have this, there's something different about being a kid where you're just happy to listen to the same thing over and over again. But as an adult, you kind of like lose that curiosity really quickly, and you need something new to like spark your interest.
Repetition is the key to language learning. But I will say that
he is right about that. Repetition is the key.
If you stop enjoying the video, it's fine to move on. I didn't study from every single video I came across. I picked the videos I knew I could watch over and over. Then I went deep into that content. And if you want to go in deep to learn a piece of content as well, this next practice, well, it's something. So what you'll do is listen, read, write, and speak with captions in your target language. Now, I don't want to sugarcoat this. This practice is mentally exhausting, but it's so good. The first time I did this was with an anime.
I could imagine that this would be very effective because you're hitting it from 4 different directions at once. So obviously, if you hit something from 4 different directions at once, you're going to be activating many different neural pathways in order to like access, retrieve, use that information. However, at the same time, you're probably trying to train too many skills at once, and therefore you're going to take a very long time to progress. So I know, for example, of Chinese, I would lose the vast majority of my time just looking at the characters, trying to write them, like doing this type of thing. Like it would just take me way too long to do that type of thing. Now I know with Japanese, with hiragana and katakana, it's not as hard. Like you can learn those scripts pretty easy. But then again, with kanji, it's basically the same as Chinese. So I'm not sure if he did like the full, kanji included as well type of thing. If he did do that, that's pretty insane. Like that's a lot of effort.
Called New Game. I studied the entire series, and when I was done, I watched the show again, and I couldn't believe it. It was like I understood everything.
And that makes total sense, because for those short like video game clips and stuff where I have actually gone and learned every single line in the subtitle on like a YouTube video, and I've gone back and I've listened to it, of course I understand it all, because I learnt it all. Like, I'm basically just relying on pure memory at this point. Like, I know everything in it. Now, of course, that will be transferable, but you're not going to get that same level of understanding automatically with the next videos you do. But I can see what he's trying to do here. He's trying to, like, get really, really good at some niche content, specific content. And that is definitely a very good way of doing things. However, I think you have to be a very special person to commit to being able to do an entire video.
So here's what I did in 5 steps. Step number 1, listen to the phrase while reading the captions. Step number 2, look up any unknown words or any unknown grammar. Step number 3, speak the phrase aloud.
All of that so far is what I do as part of sentence mining, but I don't do it for everything in a video. I do it for basically those things that I'm trying to learn.
Number 4, handwrite the phrase by copying the captions.
Now, that I don't do.
Step number 5, repeat this with the same phrase for a total of 3 times. And then you just keep on going.
Rather than doing it for 3 times, I would prefer then to generate new sentences based on that specific sentence, swapping out nouns and verbs and stuff like that.
You either finish the entire video or you said it.
The reason being is because I'm a little bit afraid what would happen here is I'd start route memorizing entire sentences as opposed to growing an understanding for the underlying template or the grammar that exists for that specific structure.
Timer to end your study session. Now imagine doing this for an entire TV series that has a total of 2 seasons, 12 episodes per season, and about 24 minutes per episode.
I want to know how long this took him. I hope he tells us.
That's almost 10 hours worth of content. And to count up all of the study time...
And I know to do 5 minutes takes me about 30 minutes. Because I've done what he mentioned before without the writing aspect. So when I get like 5 minutes of the Expanse, and I did 5 minutes of the subtitle work, basically. And again, it doesn't match up what's actually being spoken, which is so annoying. But I did 5 minutes of the subtitle work. It took me 30 minutes.
I'd say multiply that by 4 or 5 times. So that's...
Yeah, that seems accurate.
Like 40 to 50 hours of study time. Call me crazy, but it's effective.
Yeah, I would call you crazy, man. Not in a bad way. That's commitment, and I respect the grind, man. Like, that's serious commitment. I just don't think that's something that I could ever do. But at the same time, I don't think it's a bad thing because you're literally focused in on the content. Although I would not say it's the most efficient way, as he said at the beginning there, because there's certain ways you can make that probably better for your overall language skills. And it's definitely not something that would just be like an easy thing to do, because he's got here, it's so natural, it feels like cheating. This is not natural. This is very artificial. Like, you're definitely approaching this in a very artificial way. What would be deemed as natural would be, learning like a child would, just watching and trying to speak and stuff like that. This is more like very artificial, but I respect this. Like, this is a really good way of doing it, but I don't think I could do this. Just because it would just be like insanely boring.
You cover all the 4 core skills. You listen and read. You speak aloud. Then you write. This is by far the number 1 practice you could do. No doubt. But you might be wondering, really? 3 times per...
Okay, that's the only thing I don't like him saying there, is he's like, this is the number 1 practice, no doubt. Like, I hate with like language learning videos and polyglots and stuff, how they all claim at some point in their video that this is the only way to do it, when realistically it's not true. Like, you have to be of a special mindset, a type of person who's willing to do that type of grind, where you're willing to just go through one episode after one episode, and you 100% know what's coming. So there's no like curiosity or excitement for what's coming, because you've already watched the whole series, as he mentioned. So for me, this would probably be highly inefficient, because I would be so bored that I would just phase out, type of thing. So the one thing I'm just trying to stress here is that there is no ultimate method to learning a language. What you need to do is, take what I say, take what others say, dabble around and find what works for you. The ultimate method is just, I know guys, I say this every single time, just do something every day in the language. Something that will make you progress, record your progress in order to keep yourself motivated and have some crazy goal.
Per phrase, isn't that tedious? Well, yeah, but there is a good reason why. And here's what I found happens to me. The first time, I'm just too focused on copying that I'm not really learning anything. The second time, I actually start to pick up on the words and grammar and how they fit together. The third time, it actually starts to feel familiar. Do this enough and you pick up on a lot of the language. And I'll tell you, I only did this level of practice for like 4 or 5.
This actually reminds me of the other YouTube video I did a review on, which was, I think his name was Arson. Let me check. Yes, I was correct. It's Exploring Arson's Script Methodology to Language Learning. This is basically very similar to that. The only difference is Arson didn't write it out. He basically just printed out the subtitles and then just acted out the actual scene. And this guy's just not acting it out, but he's like handwriting it out and then repeating it a few times. So it's a very similar type of thing.
Series with Japanese. After that, I learned so much that I felt like I didn't have to do this anymore. That's how good this practice is. But even after I stopped this practice, there was one practice that I absolutely did not stop.
And I just want to point out one other thing. A lot of the time what happens when people find like a method that works for them, they will already be pretty far through the language. They would have already made some pretty good progression through different methods, but those methods just weren't really like what they liked. And then finally when they do find something that works for them, they're like, oh, this is the ultimate method. I need to tell everyone about this method because this is what works. This is what, got me to this point. But realistically, it wasn't what got you to that point. It was the accumulation of all these different trials that you did along the way. It's just that you finally found something that works for you, and you think this is what you should have done from day one, when realistically, on day one, this would have been a terrible idea. So, for example, on day one of learning a language, you're going to be writing out every single word. You wouldn't know what any of them mean. You would have to look up every single word. And when I say it takes me 30 minutes to do a 5-minute segment, it would have taken you 30 minutes to do like a 1-minute segment. Now imagine doing that on day one. So this here is obviously something that you probably want to do where you're at like maybe an upper intermediate stage. So it could be good at that point, but before that, not such a good idea.
And that's clip audio for review. The best way to build real fluency is through constant exposure. So instead of watching the same videos over and over, I pick out phrases and save them to review cards. And here's how I lay those out. On the front, I have the sentence in my target language.
So I'm guessing view cards is just like Anki cards.
The sentence, no audio just yet, because I want to challenge myself to read and fully understand it with no support. Then on the back, I have the translation just to give myself a way to check if I was right. Plus, I have the audio clip attached, so I can play the audio and connect the spoken phrase to what I'm reading. This is a perfect low-stress way.
My preference, and I've made videos about this on my channel, is basically just have audio on the front because, as he mentioned earlier, the primary thing you're trying to do is improve your listening. So if you want to improve your listening, what should you be listening for? Like the sounds of the language. And then on the back, you can have the translation.
To revisit everything we've learned in the past. And if you want to do this on your own, you could use a combination of ShareX and Anki if you want. That's what I did when I was learning Japanese.
I've never used that ShareX before. Maybe I'll look into it. If anyone's used it, let me know in the comments.
Or, if you're interested, you could try out a web app that I've been working on. I built a feature that allows people to clip audio directly from videos, although audio clipping is a desktop-only feature right now. Or you can save audio clips from our public database. If that
I'm getting the feeling that this is going to be a sales pitch.
sounds interesting to you, please check it out, but it's not required. As long as you have a way to review what you've studied, you'll do just fine. Now, on to the next step. Now, this one I'm only going to give a basic overview because I already made a video titled
Okay, that was good. It was just a quick intro to his product, but didn't, go into it too deep.
Perfect your accent with this musician's trick. So you could go there to watch that video for a more in-depth video. And this is a practice you don't need to hire a tutor for. You don't even need to find a native speaking partner. You could do this on your own. Simply put, mimic what you hear. It's the same idea as when we were kids and we copied characters on TV.
This is basically either a shadowing approach, which is as soon as you hear it, you say it, you try to match the same pace and tempo, or it's a listen and repeat where you listen and then you say it.
We improve. It's super simple, but it's easier said than done. It can be hard to pick up on new sounds and copy them. So if you want a deep explanation on how to do just that, you could go watch that video. I promise it's worth your time. Now, we do have one more step left, and this is the most important step of them all. So what you're going to do, with the same piece of content that you've been using throughout this entire practice, you're going to watch it one more time, and you're going to sit and enjoy it. That's it.
I think by that point you probably wouldn't enjoy it anymore, but I understand what he's getting at here. You want to feel or taste through your ears. I guess that sounds so weird. I'm imagining there's little tongues in your ears right now, but you basically want to get, the enjoyment of what you've just worked towards.
Just sit and watch. No captions, no studying. This is the most important step because it allows you to pull back and see how far you've come. Like I said before with the anime series that I studied and studied, by the end I was kind of wondering if it was even worth it. But then I watched it one more time and it clicked. I was shocked. It was just a week ago, I didn't understand any of this, but now I understand more than 90% of it. It was an incredible feeling, but I do have to say, it's not like I understood 90% of the entire language. I simply understood 90% of the language that was used in that one show.
And there's nothing wrong with it. In fact, that's a really good thing to do, is to focus on a specific niche within the language. For him, it's this specific anime show. So I agree, it's a very good thing in that regard.
Even then, that's what makes this the most important step. Many language learners get stuck feeling like they're not improving at all, when in reality, they've actually improved a lot. So you need to have these moments where you can relax and see your progress.
Okay, so overall, this is a pretty good video. I agree that most of the things that he stated here would definitely be effective, although you have to be of a very specific mindset in order to do this. For me, I could not do this like for an entire show or even for an entire episode of a show, just due to the fact that I would become insanely bored and therefore I would not actually make any progress because I'm not enjoying the progress. I'm not enjoying the process anymore. Additionally, this is something that you could do, but you're going to do once you're already pretty advanced within the language, because if you're doing this on day one, like, you would just be stopping every single sentence, every single word, and looking it up. And that would just be so exhausting, and the progress would be so small, or at least the perceived progress would be so small, that you would probably lose interest and may even quit the language. So overall, this basically takes on a combination of different methods that I've seen before, I've spoken about before, some of the stuff I've done, and some of the stuff I'm not so sure about I probably wouldn't do, especially for a language like Chinese. Imagine trying to write that out before you can actually identify, you know, a good couple of thousand characters within the script. That would just be painful. You would spend probably, you know, half a minute per character just like doing this type of thing. And you might think, oh, you'd learn characters pretty fast if you did that. Probably not, because every single character you'd be basically doing a new mimic, and you're just going to overload your brain. You're not going to learn any of those characters except for maybe the most super common ones. So it would just be exhausting in that regard. For a language that has a script that's Latin-based or even hiragana, katakana, you probably get away with this once you know those scripts. Overall, that's my thoughts on the video. I'd say it's a pretty good video. It's like there's nothing wrong with this methodology, although it's not something that you're going to do on day one and you have to be a certain mindset to do it. That's pretty much it. If you guys have liked this video, got any videos you want me to review, let me know, drop them in the comments below, and I'll see you all in the next video. And if you're not there, then I'll make you do this for Hamlet, but in Klingon.